In this video, I'm going to talk about what happens in the weeks after the death and after the funeral. Shock generally lasts, in psychotherapeutic terms, around 8 to 10 or 12 weeks. If there's been a traumatic death or an unexpected death, or very much a death of a young person, it can last quite a bit longer. And remember that that shock is there actually to cushion you. It is nature's way of cushioning you from the harsh reality of the death and also from the longer grief that goes on afterwards. So it is useful to think about it in those terms. When you emerge eventually out of the shock and the reality of the death comes over time, you might say that you didn't really feel like yourself at the beginning. I think that people can feel very, very tired, critically tired, and it doesn't really go away for quite a while. So if you're feeling like that, give in to sofa days, flop days, staying in bed days if that's what you need. The body needs to rest and to heal, and you do need reflective time to think about the death. And that kind of relaxing, if it's possible, can really help with the shock. You might find it hard to go to the home where the person lived that you loved. It might be hard to go in and see their household, the belongings, sentimental things. Sometimes people like to take an object and find they become attached to an object. It could be something as simple as a scarf or a hat or a sweater that smells of them, and they like to keep that object or wear it. It becomes very meaningful. After my father died, I kept his hat because it smelt of his cream that he wore on his hair, Brill cream, and it would make me feel close to him. That's very natural or normal. Don't feel in any way that's weird or I shouldn't be doing that. Lots and lots of people do that. Also, sometimes after someone's died, especially in the first 3 months, we just hope that we dream of them. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And people have said, why aren't I dreaming? Does it mean that I'm not going to see them again? And what I've usually noticed is that people's dreams come later when things are a little less stressful, when the funeral is over, when they are getting used to the idea that their loved one has died. I've actually never met anybody who didn't dream of the person who's died. And it can be a very lovely way of connecting with that person again. So I'm sure that it will happen for you if that's something that you want. So how can you look after yourself at this time? Well, again, it's a lot about the tiredness. As I said, rest as much as you can. That is hard if you have to go back to work, I know. But if you can find busy time in your day or just a few quiet moments to sit, relax, reflect and actually allow time for your grief as opposed to trying to shut it down. I think that's really useful. Sometimes people find music helps with that. I used to do all my grieving in the car. That's a good place to allow your feelings out, especially if you have to be mum and dad at home or in charge of things. Also, just remember that after a death, life can get very busy. There is so much to do. Somebody the other day said they called it death admin. There's an awful lot of paperwork and things that need following up, and sometimes people have to clear out flats quite quickly. and these things are forced upon them, which is hard, to be honest, really hard. So there is a lot to do, so all the more reason to rest and try and eat. And again, as I said previously, if people are offering you help, if they're offering you food, if they're offering to do things for you, say yes. Just be brave and say yes and take all the help that's offered. You might feel that you're depressed. Grief and depression feel very, very similar. If you had a clinical depression before the death and you are on medication, stay on it. If you didn't, what I would say to you is you're grieving. You feel very low. You feel very tearful, typically very tired, and that sort of very heavy lack of energy. That is grief. It's a very natural and normal process. It's something that we all go through. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You cannot go around it. You have to go through it. And in many ways, it's just a reflection of how much you love that person. And I think that's something that's quite useful to remember. And we wouldn't be without our grief, because what would that mean? It would mean we didn't love the person. So you're in that grief, try and accept it, and try not to get too tired.